Hi, I'm Diane Lozo, guest host of Living 365 TV. It's time to stop waiting and start living 365. Hi, I'm Priya Ali, host of Living 365 TV. It's time to stop waiting and start living 365. Welcome to Living 365 TV. I'm your host, Priya Ali. This show is designed to bring you real experts and real tools for real people like you who are ready to stop waiting and start living 365. I'd like to take a moment just to acknowledge our new makeup sponsor, Beautiful Faces by Gina. Gina Johal is a wonderfully talented makeup artist. She's a riot, she's a hoot. I've been laughing all morning. And she's located in Chatham, Ontario. But Gina has her own makeup line coming out very shortly, which you'll be able to order online. You'll be getting all the details at the end of the show, as well as we've put together a little video as to what the before and after look like. Scary before, I'm here now, looks good after. So we'll be very happy to share with you Beautiful Faces by Gina and letting you know how to get her makeup line. Also stay tuned because we'll be having some giveaways around the makeup and you're going to want this stuff. It lasts forever. Joining me today, I have Diane Lozo. Did I say that right?
Yep, pretty good.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay. Diane is an inspirational writer and author. She's the owner of Invoke Communications. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, Diane, I happened to have the pleasure of meeting you last week, and I was really intrigued because I've never heard somebody say, that I've met in person, say, I write under the name of Lucy Smiles. Now, not that everybody says Lucy Smiles, but that you have this persona that you write through. And I was really intrigued by that and how that came about for you.
Well, it was quite intuitive, actually. It's been almost 10 years, which I can't believe. It feels like yesterday. So my nickname was Lucy since I was a kid. Actually, my sister and I shared the same nickname, which you probably have never heard before. So what happened was, in my late teens, as I was really growing and getting into spiritual development and being more aware of what was going on around me, magically, it was one morning, May 12th, 2007, I remember the day, walking over a bridge in Vancouver with my dog, and I looked over the bridge at the mountains and the ocean, and something just made me stop in my tracks and look, and I just said to myself, something is different than what I see on an everyday basis. And I said to my dog, do you see what I'm seeing? Something beyond the physical and something beyond the reality of everyday stresses and anxieties. And Julius, my dog at the time, it was like he looked up at me and said, I've been seeing this the whole time. I was waiting for you to kind of, snap into the spiritual life and this life beyond, the material. And so because my nickname was Lucy since I was 11, I just used that name as my childlike me, right? And smiling at life in a way that is the ability to look at life through blessings rather than burdens. And so for me, Lucy Smiles came into an intuitive brand for me through that experience. So
perfect. Now, I got to pause you just for a second because for those who are on the set this morning, for those of you who know I'm an intuitive medium and I channel, and I kept hearing the name Julie, Jules, and I said, does anybody know a Jules or a Julie?
Jules is his
here.
nickname.
Jules. So that was your dog.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
wow.
I was sitting in the makeup chair and I felt something at the back of my head and I turned and Gina was doing my makeup and I'm like, and Jack, would you just touch me? She said no, and I go, so I asked the other lady here on the set, and I said, so your dog was here and here with you today. So we'll talk about that after the show.
Absolutely.
But that's pretty amazing. So yeah,
right.
As you were just talking, I'm like, whoa.
That's wonderful.
But definitely, and when you talk about going through a period of spiritual development or on a path of spiritual development, what did that actually look like for you?
For me, again, I didn't notice it. I truly didn't. My lifestyle was changing. My friends were changing. And that's one thing that I think could be difficult for people whenever you are in that awareness. Your friendships may change a little bit because not everyone's going to be jumping on that same path with you. And it's not that it's a negative. It's just it's what you need to commit to. Because it's so easy in life to fall back to old habits and old ways because it's that comfort, right? That
Absolutely.
You don't have to worry about the fear of, what are people going to think about you. But my calling as Lucy Smiles was so much bigger than worrying about what other people thought of me. But in that path that I've chosen, the amount of people that I've been helping globally through my writing is so profound that I know it's not about me anyway. And so that's another commitment that I believe that we as healers, whatever that looks like, whether you're a writer, an actor, an intuitive, healing comes in so many different facets. So I believe that if you can understand that and surround yourself with the people that will support that, and that I was so blessed, and I still am so blessed that people, if I haven't written for a little while, they're like, where are you? We need you. And so I realize again, I have to get out of my way. If I've got a little bit of writer's block, I need to work through that, meditate through that, because people are waiting to be healed in those words that I have. So, and I get to heal myself through the process.
Yeah, and it takes some courage to step into that, because I remember somebody saying to me one day, like, there's people that need you there for healing, and if you don't step up to the plate, they're not going to receive from you.
Right.
And definitely something that we want to encourage viewers as well is that, there's a lot of times when you'll have a calling to something, but you're afraid to do it, you're fearful. And there are people in the world who are going to benefit from what you have to offer, whether it be a gift, a talent, something, a hunch, intuition, whatever it is that you're really, is your true gift. People are waiting. I have, behind the camera, just so you guys know, I have a very talented comedian here who doesn't realize that people are waiting for his comedy, and it's very healing, but we'll leave that for another show. But just to, to really step into that.
And even to go beyond that, it's not even just you healing them, but them stepping in and saying, okay, I should be doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So then it's almost like it's a win-win-win, right?
Now,
so.
I think that's so cool that you have, though, this, like, Lucy Smile. Like, does that change who you are when you're writing? Do you feel different when you're writing?
I'm absolutely channeled.
Can you describe that for me? Like, what differences you feel?
I don't feel anything
You don't feel
specifically.
anything. Okay.
In terms of, you would know if it's or like when you think of like clairvoyance, it's like claircognizance, I think. And so for me, I just have no barrier. So I'll write, I call it a smile. I write my smiles. I've written thousands over the last 8 years. I published a book which is a compilation of my smiles. And whenever I write, nothing stops me. So I'll write a quote that I create on my own, and I write about 4 paragraphs, which is a smile, and then I'll find a picture that will correlate with that. For me, writing the 4 paragraphs takes me 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes. Finding a picture to correlate with that takes me longer, because my channeling, there's no block there for me. And so I've also noticed one of the profound things where I realized my writing as a healing agent was when I had to sit with my closed door in my office for my editors for my book, I had to reread all of my smiles that I was incorporating into this book. And as I was reading them, I was learning. And so it was very profound for me to be taught by Lucy Smiles. It was a very interesting dynamic, right? Because I feel that Diane is Diane and Lucy is Lucy. I mean, I still walk the talk as much as I can. I mean, truly, because I need to be able to incorporate my brand as who I am. But whenever I have my little stumbles and I write, I teach myself how to get through those stumbles through my writing. So it's very profound. It's very interesting, as you would know as a healer, right?
And coach too. I mean, yesterday I was out coach. I ended up in an impromptu coaching session in a meeting for a company. I was out doing some consulting, and exactly what I was saying to this young woman, I felt like, oh, okay, that's my message. And that's, sometimes you get to a point where when you're the coach or the intuitive or the healer, the advice giver, the inspirational writer, that where do you seek your inspiration from? Where does it come from? For me, I've recognized that it channels through, so it comes from that voice and it's not mine. It's, right? It's sort of like, it is, but it isn't, and it just comes through me, it channels through. So it's really amazing if you've got the presence of mind to sit and receive it, not only because some people will get caught up in the, I give great advice, and it's like, well, it's not even me, right? You get to that place where you can recognize that it's something different. Now, some people in the spiritual community would want to know, are you identifying that sort of as your higher self, or do you notice a difference? Would you call it your higher self?
You could, I guess you could call it your higher self.
Yeah.
I think that it is my closest to soul, right? And I think there's so many different ways that you could categorize it. So I don't categorize it and put any stigma on it, but higher self does sound intuitively like what it would be. So for instance, and you were talking a little bit about where do you get your information from and where do you get your inspiration from. So for me, it's literally on a daily basis. I'll give you an example. So I was waiting for a subway, and I was just kind of zoned out, and I was just watching the subway, come in, and beforehand I saw the words "Mind the Gap." So I title all of my smiles. So I saw "Mind the Gap," and I thought, wow, that's so interesting. So that's my next smile. So I never know what my smile is going to be, but I know what the title is because I see it somewhere. So mind the gap for me was being able to mind the gap in my life. So, I was so successful and I got this position, and I may be on the way to finding the love of my life, but I need to mind the gap in between. because it's just as profound and it's just as important in my growth.
Yeah.
So Mind the Gap for me created a smile that spoke to me that day.
Yeah.
And then so the other good thing about my writing is that everyone receives it in a different way. So
Yes.
I'll receive emails from my readers, because I send it out to my global readers, and I'll receive someone sending me an email saying, I can't believe you read my mind yesterday. It was exactly what I needed because of my divorce. And then the same smile, I'll get another email saying, I can't believe you wrote that about, like, I just lost my dog.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, wow.
How does it?
It just is
From one extreme,
infinite,
yeah.
right? The message is infinite, and the infinite, and the person who receives it in their way.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the law of attraction too, right?
Yes.
It goes to who needs it, how they need it, and this is with people that do inspirational writing,
Right.
readings, things like that. Those messages, they're helpful because people will perceive them and receive them as needed
Yeah.
in the way that they do.
Yeah, with no
Now,
judgment.
Like, so say for example, your Mind the Gap smile.
Mm-hmm.
How did that apply to your life?
Back in the day, it was literally that. It was that I was in a gap in my life.
Yeah.
It's like, where am I going? Oh, I remember where I was before. It was so fabulous. And now I'm kind of in a transition. I know what I want. I don't know how to get there. But I realized, and it's funny because I just read Quiet the Mind and the Soul Will Speak. That was pretty much what it meant.
Yeah.
It was that I need to stop chasing and start, you do so much work and you're treading and you're trying so hard. Sometimes when you just sit back and allow things to come in, the law of attraction, and be in a high enough vibration that you believe you deserve it, then you can actually just see things incorporate in your life. And nothing's going to transpire right away overnight. Things take time. Sometimes you're not ready for that magic in those ways to come into your life. But so Mind the Gap for me was just love yourself, live in the moment, enjoy your friends, enjoy that you're taken care of all of the time. You love your life, you love where you live. I was living in Vancouver, my favorite place on the earth. And so appreciate everything you have and not have that expectation.
Yeah. Now, do you ever
hard.
have challenges with
All
that?
the time.
Okay, because I was going to say, if you
All
don't
the
have, if she didn't
time.
have challenges, we were going to have to
This is why
reconsider
this is why I have my book in my home office. I'm like, okay, what do I need to hear about? So absolutely.
Yeah, me too, because there's
all
that part
do.
of us that wants it now,
We always want it.
right?
now.
Because once you decide you want it, you kind of want it now,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
So, and that's very true. Like, that's great advice for, and particularly that one smile that you have is Mind the Gap.
Right.
Because it's what are you doing during that time?
Right.
So from a law of attraction perspective, once you create a desire, it's already done.
it's already done.
It's already done. That's all you have to do.
Right.
The thing is, it's just how you mind the gap, because in that time frame, that's when the vibration will attract it and bring it to you.
So how are you nurturing that, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to be, I believe that a dream without action is a dream deferred. So I do believe it's important for people to understand, and I don't judge, but I through my own experience, is that things don't fall on your lap, they fall beside your lap.
Yeah.
And are you willing to look and say, okay, I'm open to receive, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's very important. And again, going back to, I also am a facilitator. I do vision board workshops, and I've been doing them again I've been doing pretty much everything I've been doing for just under 10 years. Through, in my mid-20s, that spiritual entity kind of like just coming and saying, okay, now we're ready for you. Stop doing what you're doing. We're going to shift you a little bit, and we're going to, create these services for you to help enhance the world. And so the vision board workshops, going back to what you had mentioned too, that once you have that desire, and so it is. And I think it's important, and I use the word commitment quite often because it's true. I think commitment is so important, and consistency. But then being okay when it's not perfect, right? So you could fall off the wagon. You're not
the
going to be
closeness
perfect.
of the match.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you have a desire, how willing are you to be open to whenever you see the information? And if you fall down, how fast are you able to say, okay, I'm acknowledging where I am right now. This is where I want to be. So what am I doing? And if I fall, it's fine, but don't let that get so far off where you have so much of a harder time to get back to that.
Yeah, because the momentum,
Desired
right?
self.
If the momentum
Yes.
swings
You
too
stop
far
and
in
you
the other
start.
way, so it's hot and cold, and people will get frustrated with
Right.
that.
Yes.
And that's where, now you mentioned your vision board workshops. A lot of people do know what vision boards
Yeah.
are, but for the people that don't, can you explain a little bit
Sure.
about that?
So a vision board, the way I present my workshops, a vision board is taking what you desire and putting it down to make it tangible. And again, it's not going to happen overnight, right? So I have done vision boards for the last decade, and some of the things, I did have my first vision board in Vancouver, I used a cork board. And my roommate, Cindy, at the time, she was so excited, right? She's like, show me your vision board. I said, oh my God, Cindy Lou, look at this vision board that I have. And I put it in my room, and then about 4 weeks or 6 weeks later, I remember her saying to me one morning, we were getting ready, she said, how's your vision board coming? Like, what's going on? Did anything manifest? I said, well, let's just take a look. And I hadn't really paid attention to it. But every morning I woke up, it was right there. So I know I subconsciously
Absolutely.
was paying attention to it. I took it out, put it on our sofa, and I said, oh my gosh. And I untacked like 70%.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is so interesting. So that's when I knew, okay, there is something to be said for this, right? Because I just did it casually, and I thought I could really help other people see that there's a magic in it. And so what I really believe as well, too, is affirmations are very important, but also having that vibrational feeling.
Totally.
So I could say, oh, I drive the most beautiful rose gold Lexus, right? But if I don't believe that I do, and I don't know why I want that, so I don't want it just to be, pretentious and drive around, Oakville and Burlington with my beautiful rose gold Lexus. I think of the Lexus as I did this. I'm a woman. I followed my power. I followed, not just women, men alike, but for my own self, I'm a woman. I followed my dreams. I made this happen. I didn't let fear stand in my way, and now this is what I've achieved. And because I have this, obviously I have more, so that's how I'm able to help the world with, financial abundance.
Yeah.
I know if, I want to be able to have that financial abundance because I know that I'm going to be giving a whole heck of a lot of that away. So for me, knowing what you want, believing that you have it, having an affirmation that goes with it, but really believing and having
You
that
have to
vibrational,
feel it.
right?
I remember after my fourth child was born, we had gone
So I
on
can't believe you have 4 kids.
I can. Especially around
Wow.
9 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, I've got 4 kids. But yeah, my fourth, my daughter was born. She was about 4 months old. And we had gone, my husband at the time, we had gone with the kids to Turks and Caicos. And I remember being at this resort in the pool bar in a bikini thinking I was the fucking cat shit meow. Just right at the bar.
Yeah.
And having pictures and stuff like that. And then later, they're all freaking out because I swore.
Okay.
But it's
I'm
all good.
following your
it's all
lead,
good.
so
Yeah,
now
yeah.
I know what
no,
I
we're all
can
good.
say. No.
But it is what I thought.
Right.
And so later I was flipping through the pictures of the day.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I had this muffin top. Tim Hortons had nothing on me, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I had thought. So the affirmations, because I was still working on losing some baby weight.
Yeah.
Was I have a slender
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
And when I looked at that, so after I tried to use that affirmation, all I could see was that muffin
wow.
top hanging out that really hot blue bikini. And I was
Right.
like, whoa, just because the strings tie up doesn't mean it fits. I've
Doesn't mean
learned
it
this the
fits.
hard way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just like,
Right.
after that, and so when I went to do after that was, I am comfortable in the body that I have
That's
and I
so
love it.
perfect.
And
Yes.
that changed it for me because that
Absolutely.
changed the vibration. It was true to me. But a
Right.
lot of times, a lot of people think law of attraction, vibration, manifestation, it's about positive thinking. It's not. That's part of it.
Part of it.
But you got to feel it.
Yep.
You got to feel it. You got to own it. You
And you
got
have
to believe
to know
it.
why.
Yeah.
And I think that's so
why you want
important.
it.
Like, why am I wanting this? If I want it just for the sake of wanting it, it's a little trickster thing for the
It is.
the universe is going to say, well, I don't understand. So you have to be so clear. So I am following the life of my dreams, traveling the world to help change. Rescuing animals and helping children. You're going to see things come into your life that you won't even realize that was part of the manifestation. So like not getting the job. So for instance, for me, when I started on my entrepreneur path, I was working in corporate Canada, working in mining and real estate development and sustainable this, that, and the other, and I was working with the bigwigs, and I loved my job. I was an executive assistant, and I got paid very well in Vancouver, and I loved what I did. But it was interesting because I would help some of the other EAs and some of my really cool friends that were in my office with me to do these creative things for their kids, and they would always say, "Why are you here? Like, what are you?" This was before Lucy Smiles, right? And I would do these like PowerPoint slide, and a greeting card creation for their children, and all of this really fun creativity. And they would always say, like, why are you like sitting here? I know that we get paid quite a bit, but like, you have to think about your like fulfilling your dream. And so I thought, well, I don't understand what that means. I never grew up knowing what that meant. I grew up 9 to 5. Make sure you clock in, clock out, make sure you get paid. And nothing against my parents. I'm so blessed that I had the most amazing childhood because our richness came from love. It truly did. But I never really had that opportunity to understand outside of that. So I've always been quite all about love, but I've always been all about just enough to get by. So I really had to change that financial blueprint for myself, and I'm still working on it, right? But it's a daily discipline. I believe in daily discipline. And so my entrepreneurial path really changed whenever I realized that my calling is more important than that facade of the beautiful condo and the beautiful wardrobe and so I know I still want that, but it's going to mean something different for me.
Totally.
It's going to mean something completely different for me. I'm not, it's because I decided that the path that I follow is going to help other people. and then all of that is just going to be a default, and then I can help, if I have a beautiful condo, I can have people stay if they need shelter, if they need, this, that, and the other. So it's really the difference is, why do you want what you want?
It's so true.
Not from a shallow perspective.
Yeah, and not just for the purpose of acquiring. And
exactly.
I think it's really interesting, myself having gone through this, as a coach, you can progress into speaking. And so last year I was kind of going down getting on the speaker's path and doing that sort of thing. And I had my first experience with it. And I didn't really like it. And I knew I could do it.
Right.
And I knew I could do it well. But it was just sort of like, okay, it's going to pull me away from my home. And we're going to make enough money so that I have more time to spend with the kids, to live in the house that I already live in, and spend the time with the kids that I already have. It was like, I'm going to make more money to have what I already have.
Right.
And when you think about it, you hear a lot of people's dreams, it's to simplify.
Yes.
As we progress on in life, we tend to get to that place of simplifying, but we create all this stuff and things and money and big property and cars to get down to simplicity. And I was like,
it's like counterintuitive.
Wait a minute. I'm trying to do this thing to get the things that I already have and have less than I already have.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense.
Right.
So this became the perfect forum for me because this is my studio, this is my home. I love having people over and it works out well. I'm still speaking and I don't have to go anywhere.
Amazing.
Right? So from a law of attraction perspective, I attracted this opportunity to have that speaking ability and have that forum and have that global reach without having to leave.
And in the right facet for you.
In the right facet for me.
And that's, I think, very, just to kind of piggyback off of that, in terms of working with some previous coaches in my life, and they would say certain things to me, and it was completely genuine, but they would say, you're going to have to start doing video, you're going to start doing this, and you're going to start being a mentor on stage. And I thought, well, that sounds like I'm supposed to do that based on where I am and what's the next step. I guess that's the next step.
Yeah.
So for a couple of years, I would struggle with my, not identity, but maybe a little bit of my Lucy Smiles identity. And I thought, what am I supposed to be doing? I guess I'm supposed to do all of that because isn't that what you do, right?
Yeah.
You think about the Hay House and you think,
yes.
I mean, my favorite, Hay House, but you think about where those people are, like the stages, and you traveling globally and you've got 5,000 people. And so I thought for a while, is that what I really want to do? Is that what my heart is calling me to do? And so my brand with Lucy Smiles and where I see it going is something more tangible. So it's not so much the videos, it's more like the tangible products of inspiration and that line for me. So that's something that I'm working on right now, and that is where it feels light.
Yeah.
And I would say whenever it feels right, whenever it's light, it's right.
Right, yes, exactly.
And so still I would love to have that opportunity, but that was not where I was supposed to be going, and so I felt this chaos. Right? It's like I didn't understand what was going on. So because of the chaos, I was able to simplify and say that, no, my path is having those tangible products and that tangible line of inspiration. That's where my goal is right now, right? And that whether that ends up being on stage and being able to speak to hundreds of people, that would be after. But I feel like if I bypass what my soul has been calling for me to do, I'm going to feel lost. And I think it's important for people to realize that. Don't get so stuck on the stigma of where you think you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
And now look at where you are.
It's really, really hard for people because there's so
hard.
many expectations. And I mean, both sexes, but I see it in my practice, which is pretty much 50-50,
right.
for men and for women.
Right.
There's so many expectations as to where we should be, or then it's by a certain age. Like, I have 2 teenagers, I'm sitting there with my son last night trying to choose courses, and he's just like, Mom, can I take gym all day? And he's 15, and I want to say yes, but it's sort of like, well, maybe.
Yeah.
So
I wish I could say yes.
Right? But you kind of want to, you sort of want to help people prepare for what could be ahead of them, but there's that part of me as a parent that wants to say, yeah, like do gym all day if you want to, because that's where your heart is at, that's where your passion's at.
Yeah.
But it's also, there's also a comfort zone thing of that's what he's comfortable doing.
Right.
So there's a part of me that encourages him to take the cooking class.
Right.
Also, that's my, underhandedness of trying to get him to cook dinner once in a while, but to, take auto so you can tune up mommy's car once in a while. So.
No selfishness at all.
Not at all. You made a really great point about light and heavy, because I work with something as well called Access Consciousness, and it's one of the tools that they use there is understanding, exactly as you said,
Right.
if it's light, it's right. If they say if it's light, it's true. If it's heavy, it's a lie, kind of thing.
wow.
So a lot of people are in here way too much. And yes, of course, I'm not telling you to not use your brain, use your mind, but what's really going to guide you in life is that light and heavy feeling and being in alignment. And so many people are not listening.
Right.
They're not listening to their souls.
Yeah.
They don't listen to their bodies.
And I think to make it even more complicated for everyone, that's great. This is a Lucy smile for you. Sign up for this one. No, I think it's hard too because sometimes they'll say, "Oh, it's heavy," but really that's fear.
Yes.
So you have to really sit with it for a minute.
Yes.
Like, oh, that's really heavy, so that's not my path. Actually, what does that heaviness mean, right?
Yeah.
So you have to identify that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
the heaviness is actually lightness, but your gremlins are showing you it's heavy. But if you just push those away for a minute and say, okay, move over for a minute, I need to hear this message, it's actually light, but it's going to be scary. So fear is heavy.
And what they do there to help with that is before you ask yourself the question, you just say truth, 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 truth. Barriers down.
Right.
Truth, 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 and just kind of let that go,
Amazing.
get into that space, and then search for it. Because I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm like, oh no, that's heavy. Never mind, not doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a perfect
but it's my own
excuse.
crap. It's my
Yeah.
own bullshit of
Yeah.
not wanting to do it.
So you're going to be there
just-
again in 3 months. It's going to be the same thing, the same message waiting for you. Like, are
Totally.
you ready now? Because you.
And it will
So-
not, and that's the other thing, like really when you put the opportunity out, when you put the desire out there, the opportunities come. And it comes back to your point about commitment,
Right.
consistency. Now, you use the word discipline, which for me, honestly, is a little heavy.
Is it heavy? Yeah.
But like focus, similar
Right.
to focus,
Yeah.
is what I think you're also
Yeah.
saying, right? It's just
Yeah.
to
or even
have
nurture.
yeah.
So I say daily discipline because I think, okay, so
like
is
practice.
this going to help
yeah.
me in the path of where I want to go, or is this going to take me off?
Yeah.
So just being able to, or even discernment is a little bit softer if you want to use that.
Yeah.
Being
Discipline. I was that kid, that
Okay.
the rebel kid.
Yeah.
So discipline, I'm like,
It's like
"Grr." yeah.
Yeah. So I think discernment, but I think commitment
Yeah.
again, and just saying,
Definitely.
okay, is this going to really help me grow? And if I'm going to do it, I know it's not going to help me grow. I'm not going to I'm not going to be upset with myself for the next 3 days, right? So I think it's just about discernment and saying, okay, I make the best decisions as much as possible to create the life of my dreams.
Yeah.
And then that's okay if you want to just once in a while, not be perfect. Say if you want to go to the gym 4 times a week and you only go twice, let's be honest, right? Just don't go and eat the whole cake on Friday
Yeah,
night.
totally.
So, balance.
It is
Yeah.
about balance, and it is about looking at the structure of what you're doing, having
Yes.
some steps to your goals and what's going on. There's so many
Yeah.
people that, again, with law of attraction, throw it out in the air, and well, I put it out to the universe.
Where is it?
Where is
Yeah.
it? And it's like, well,
Why did
what
she get
you
hers
have
and I
to-
didn't get mine?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny because I listen to a lot of Abraham Hicks.
I love.
She makes me laugh,
Hilarious.
and so she was talking about how it's not here yet. She's like, it's not here yet. It's not here yet. She's talking about a lover. It's like it's not here yet. Oh, look, she has one, right? It's like it's not here yet. It's
I
not
love
here.
that one,
Oh,
yeah.
look, she has one. She's not even nice to hers.
Yeah, I know. People need to hear more about Abraham.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just about being out there and observing in the reality and recognizing that by the time what's before you
Yes.
is before you, that's come from all your past thinking.
Exactly.
So really what you want to do is get into that present moment.
Right.
And the funniest thing of it all is what really works is being happy.
And hanging around the right people.
Yeah,
That's huge,
which will
too.
brings you that lightness. So
Yes.
if people that make
Yeah.
you, so this is the worst thing of it all is the hardest part in getting what you want is you have to be happy all the time. Jeez, that's a really bad.
Like,
place
aren't
to
you
have-
supposed to only be happy after you get everything?
Yeah, and that's the
Right?
thing, because a lot of people have it backwards. When I get this, I'll be happy. But it's about how it works is by being happy.
Totally the opposite.
You come into that vibration and that frequency that then allows for
Yes.
that to attract to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so many people, unfortunately, you keep my coaching practice busy with it, but
Yes.
it's what
Yeah.
it's what keeps people from their desires
Right.
is because they're waiting for that thing to come. And it speaks again to what you're saying about why do you want it,
Right.
which is why when you look around with a lot of the celebrities out there
have
that have
everything.
fame, and you're thinking, and people sit back and go, you have everything and you're not happy.
Right.
And it's because what they really want is not that money.
Exactly.
It's that feeling that they're after. And a lot of times it's significance, it's love,
Yeah.
it's
It's
affection, connection, right?
Yeah.
And they're needing it, but it's
And the
never
feeling
enough.
of being, absolutely, yeah. The feeling of being that you're contributing as well, too.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think, because I know we all have core values, and I know my top core values, and I realized this just through a recent transition through some of my business, and I was realizing, okay, well, why am I not feeling as content? And I realized that I was busy doing what I was doing, creating new programs and doing all of these things, but I wasn't connecting. I'm such an extrovert, and so I get all of my energy from. I can go and sit at a Starbucks or a coffee shop. I don't have to actually talk to anyone.
Yeah.
But if I could hear everyone talking, I come home like, oh my god, this is the best day ever.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. I just had the best day ever at Starbucks, but I didn't even talk to anyone. But it's that connection. So I went through a little phase in my business, creating programs and kind of being like within. And I'd realized that one of my top values is contribution and community. And so then I recreated my community with my vision board workshops and doing other programs to help people with their goals and mind mapping and all of that stuff. And all of a sudden I'm back.
Yeah.
And it's not about the money.
No.
It's about I've created this new community where I'm contributing to other people's happiness. And that also happened to me too when I would always write regularly, my Lucy Smiles, daily smiles. And then again, I was going through a bit of a transition. And so for a short period of time, I wasn't having them come out as much. And so through that as well too, I wasn't contributing the way that I feel that I'm needed. And so that also had me looking and saying, why am I feeling not depressed? I think that's a very dark, heavy word, but why am I feeling down and not in that space
out of alignment. Misaligned.
And so I realized I thrive on contribution.
Yeah.
And so how can I create everything in my business? And then my business shifted. So my Invoke communications agency, everything in the last 6 months, just like now it's this huge umbrella with all these amazing things that I do, none of which I could take out, right? So a lot of people will say, well, you have too much going on. I'm like, I have everything going on.
Yeah.
I have everything going on. You couldn't take one thing from me because they all mean something specific
Totally.
to contribute, right? And so absolutely, I think people need to understand what is that contentment for
Yeah,
me.
and I get that a lot too, like, oh, you're doing too much, or you're slow down. And like, that is, for me, that's my
That's right.
pace, and that's the way that I function. I feel alive.
Yes.
Because to me, I'm like, I'm here now to live.
Yes.
So I'm going to live now. I'm going to do all this stuff now. And I find that a lot of people will give advice based on where they're at.
It's their story.
So it's their story, their fear, it's
Their limitation.
Because even, we've just launched our own network.
Yes.
And I was talking to a friend, and I said, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? And he says, well, I know you can do it, but you don't want to just do it. You want to kill it and own it and blah, blah, blah. I was like,
Wow.
right? But I could sense it was his own fear. That's his formula.
Yeah.
So if I can't do this 100% completely perfectly,
Right.
then I won't do it.
Right.
And for me, I'm like,
You're never going to do it then.
I'll do
Yes,
it.
you have to do
You figure it out as I go.
Spontaneity.
Right?
There's something to be said for that.
And
Absolutely.
and I find that and that I believe comes from letting go of the fear of and not perceiving it as failure,
Right.
is looking at it as opportunity.
Yes.
Rather than a fear to fail or an
Yeah.
opportunity to fail, it's an
It's a
opportunity
learning
to grow.
experience as you go.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that
what if I turn out I don't like it?
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
There's just so much pressure that we place upon ourselves
Perfection.
and others
Yes.
for perfection.
Yes.
And I really think about it. I'm thinking, well, are we all just going to sit here and dream and not try?
Right. That'd be so boring.
Right?
Yeah.
But so many people
Yes.
are doing that
Yes.
and going through their lives daily, miserable,
Yeah.
wanting what they want,
Yes.
dreaming about what they dream for, but yet they won't move.
And that's why I think it comes back to the importance of your circle of influence. Like, what is influencing you, right? And so going back to when I first started on my path, 18 or 15 years ago, it was so important for me to be okay with creating a very supportive, loving circle of influence of people who I look up to, right? And they always say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the room.
Yeah.
And so that took a lot for me too. And then again, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful transformation, but you have to be okay with it and to know that it's helping you grow and helping them grow.
Totally.
And being supported. And so I think for me, I'm so blessed in that way too. Like, my partner's super supportive, my family, my friends are super supportive, but it came from me saying yes to that, right? And being okay with not having the same circle of influence that I maybe had in my early 20s.
Yeah, and again, going back to that mind the gap, it's one of the things that I hear people say, we've grown, or this person hasn't grown.
Right.
So I'm going to steal your cup for just
Steal
a
it,
second, but
yes.
let's just say you and I are this far apart.
Right.
And I've grown, and you've grown. We're still that far apart, right? So people tend not to recognize that, yes, that person has grown,
Yeah.
but you've moved apart, and you're still where you were. That gap
Right.
is still there.
Yes.
But so often, and here's your coffee back, is that we're always looking at people saying, well, you haven't grown, and I just think that's simply not true.
It's none of our business either.
It isn't. And I often say to people, it's like babies walking. You don't sit there and be like, listen, 8-month-old, why are you slacking? Get up on your 2 feet
Yeah.
and let's go, right?
Yeah.
6-month over here is already up and running,
Right.
What's wrong with you? And I say to people, how many adults do you see crawling around?
Exactly. Yeah.
they'll get there.
They'll get there.
They'll
in
get
their own
there when
way.
they're ready.
And the one that's crawling earlier may have a harder time later.
It just
There's no
depends. You know,
judgment.
sometimes moms and dads are holding their babies up and that
Yes.
strengthens their legs.
Yeah.
Or there's just different reasons why
Yes.
they may advance faster. It's just the experience that
their
comes
life.
to them.
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
And so to really recognize that and stay out of what other people are doing. You know, let that
And lead by example.
Yeah.
I'm not going to preach
No.
what I know. I'm going to be what I know.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm going to embody what I believe. And if that helps other people, but I'm not going to say, I can't believe you're not doing
Yeah.
that. Because I'll be out, like back in the day, someone could have very well been looking at me and saying, what
Well,
are you
that's just
doing?
it. Because
So
from
where's the
where your coffee cup is to mine, somebody's coffee cup's up here going,
Up there
hey,
saying,
you're
I can't
back there.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So there's always going to be gaps.
Yeah.
And you're really, I really like that, and that's probably going to be the name of this show. It's probably going to be called Mind the Gap, because it is about understanding the gaps between people and
Yes.
not judging them.
Yep.
And how you act in the middle of a gap between where you are and maybe where you want to be. But to recognize you're going to get there.
Yep.
You are going to get there. And so you may as well have a good time.
Absolutely.
Right? You may as well have the best friggin' time you can until you're there, because
Yeah.
you're going to get there anyways.
And another thing, again, with that is I could be here. I'm going to use your coffee.
Yeah, there we go.
So I'm here and you're here, and then I'm, say, growing in this way in some facet, and you're, here. So I can't judge you because I don't think you're growing as much, because you're doing some growing that I may need to understand.
Exactly.
How can I judge you? How do I not know that you're like building this empire in
Yeah,
your backyard? And like,
totally.
she never leaves her house.
Yeah.
She's like a homebody and she's depressed and she never leaves her house. And I open your front door and wow, no wonder she's got this fabulous, empire that she created. So how do I know you're not growing?
It's
right?
so true. And I think these cups are really coming in
Love
handy
the-
today.
love the cups.
So, because when we were talking about gaps, I think people think that a gap, somebody's behind. And
Right.
I'm saying we're parallel.
Absolutely.
The gaps are parallels.
Yeah.
They're not somebody's ahead, somebody's behind. Because I never look at myself, even as a coach or a healer or whatever, and say, oh, I'm above you.
Right.
Because that's not
the
true.
opposite of your
We're
healing.
different.
Right.
I channel things through differently.
Yes.
I'm a conduit. I do things differently.
Exactly.
In a pace that's
and
in
I
alignment
need you
to me.
to do what you're doing, and you need me to do what I'm doing
Exactly.
in order to grow. And I think that's true. So I mean, with my writing, if I'm writing a smile and I call it, whatever I call it, I don't think, oh, I'm so wonderful, so because I just pulled this out of my soul, my soul script. I obviously needed to read what I wrote because it's my diary. So for me, you need to be humble in your healing, right? And so I think that's very important too. There's no entitlement when it comes to a healer.
And I find the people that are humble, sometimes it's usually because they don't see it as anything special.
Right.
I was with a woman last night who is very gifted. She's been on the show before, Sandra Dowick, and we were talking about her and all that she's accomplished, and she just doesn't see it. But it's more so because she's just being her.
She's doing her
And
job.
that's the thing, when you are yourself, and it's a really great place to be, is I've just found that just really being in my own space of being who I am, and feeling how I feel, and dressing how I dress, and speaking how I speak.
You look fabulous.
Well,
by the
thank
way.
you. You too. But just really being in that space,
Yes.
it's so freeing. Because that's, when you talk about light and heavy,
Yes.
this has been the lightest year of my life. I know we're
Wonderful.
only at February 17th, but really
Imagine moving forward.
I
then.
know. So
Be
it's
floating by July. I can't wait to see.
But that's what's happening. I just feel like I'm
Yes.
floating around because
Yeah.
I've just let all the masks and the
the
filters down
expectations
and the
of other
expectations
people.
on. And I'm like,
Yep.
it is. This morning, Gina was coming in from Cambridge. She's like, "There's traffic." I'm like, "You'll get
Yeah,
here. It'll
I
work
know.
out. It's all good." It's just that lightness of it. It will all be fine.
It will be.
Right?
And I think that's important, absolutely, because if you have gratitude and you have appreciation for what it is, then, and you hold, every day I write my gratefuls, in my mornings, and I write my morning gratefuls. It could be anything from my new makeup, right? Or, the fact that I'm not worried about falling on my tushy because there's so much ice on my dog walks. Like, just the little things, anything. While I'm writing my gratefuls, I hear a bird sing. I'm grateful for the sound, all of my senses. And so I think it's important to have gratitude and appreciation, because so that whenever bad things happen, and they will, then at least you're able to handle it better. But if you already can't stand life as it is, when not much is going on, that's harmful, how are you going to react whenever you're going to go through the real stuff that's going to happen? Like, I know that the worst parts of my life haven't happened yet. And I think it's a reality for me, right? Like, I know that I'm going to have, I'm going to have a lot. Absolutely, right? This is the teeter-totter, whatever. You can't have dark without light. So I think it's important not to be sitting around waiting and saying, I'm grateful, so and if the sky falls, but being able to have gratitude and appreciation so you can handle life in a way that's going to be without attachment, which is not easy, but again, for me, it's just discerning and having that discipline to say, okay, I choose to not attach to this, or this person's energy, or this person's judgment of me, or my judgment of myself, which is usually the biggest, right?
Totally. Now, leave our viewers with a final word.
Okay. Let me think here. So, in terms of my writing, I really believe that it's important for you to follow your heart, follow your dreams. And if you don't know what it is that your soul is trying to say to you, then just to sit back and allow any of the messages to come through. And if you still don't know, then just enjoy life to the fullest, and soon it'll come for you, and you'll be like, aha, now I totally get what's going on.
And where can the viewers reach you, find you, get your...
So I'm on lucysmiles.com.
Okay.
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook on my fan pages. So lucysmiles.com is the best place for me. My communications agency is invokecommunications.ca.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Viewers, this really is all about minding the gap. The gap is life. That is where the gap is, because you're always going to want something. You're always going to want to be ahead and move towards something. There's always going to be something you're striving for, looking to achieve or acquire. And it's really about how you spend that time waiting for that thing. You can sit there and moan and groan, and that actually will delay things because it swings the momentum in the other direction. So really focus on living your life in a happy way. Do the things that bring you passion. Do the things that bring that light feeling. Get to know that light feeling first and foremost. Get in touch with your being and understand that the difference between light and heaviness within you, and let go of the heaviness and simplify. But that will really help bring you to a more joyful place and have happier days. I want to remind you, as always, to stop waiting and start living 360.